seeing how they use the platform and how it has affected their business. So that's, kind of a meet them where they are as one of those goals, to see how people are really using, the things that we market every day and the things that, the tech team creates, and see how it's impacting people, and, taking that data plus their stories and bridging them into one, social strategy.
Welcome to Social Post, a podcast brought to you by MeetEdgar. Each week, we bring you a guest to inspire your creativity, breathe new life into your marketing strategy, and get you motivated to take action in your business. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned entrepreneur, you'll walk away feeling like you took your social media marketing multivitamin. Enjoy the interview, and remember, what's possible for them is possible for you. And we can't wait to see your success.
Welcome back to Social Post, a podcast brought to you by MeetEdgar. And today we're doing something a little different, where we're giving you a sneak peek behind the scenes of MeetEdgar with one of our very first LEAD members. So LEAD is a new program that stands for Learn, Experience as a Delegate. And Tia Calvin is our very first LEAD program here at MeetEdgar. Our objective with this program is to really open doors to students and recent graduates from marginalized communities and welcome them into the tech startup world. So it's a 3-month program where you get to experience the assigned team that you're on here at MeetEdgar, and Tia is from the Marketing Lead program. So we're going to dive deep into her experience and talk a little bit about what it's like to work at a startup like MeetEdgar. So Tia, before we get going, can you introduce yourself a little bit and let us know where you went to school, what you studied there, and your journey that brought you here to MeetEdgar?
Yeah, hi. So I'm actually a recent graduate of Lipscomb University. I just graduated in December, and I started MeetEdgar in October. Right before I graduated, I was just kind of looking for something to transition from, my senior year to working in the workforce and getting some more experience. And I actually came across this opportunity on Twitter, just kind of looking for opportunities and looking for mentors and things like that. And I applied, and it stuck. It worked out. And yeah, I was a major in journalism, with a focus in marketing and some social media management internships in my past. I was really looking for something that would just continue to allow me to work through that, without kind of sacrificing, the last parts of my college experience and diving full force into the workforce. So this was a perfect opportunity, and I'm so grateful to be on this team.
Oh, that's so amazing to hear that you use social media in a way that it's furthering your career and looking for mentors, because that's a lot of the advice that we give people online, is to share your successes, share your failures, and really be transparent about those things. So what advice would you give someone to use social media in order to find opportunities like this, since it clearly worked well for you? Like, what strategies did you take to find that? How do you network on social media?
Yeah, I would say the biggest thing is just creating a presence for yourself. People really don't like to use their personal social media for work things, like to keep it separate. But honestly, in like today's society, today's day and age, like those two things have to come together. And I think especially platforms like Twitter, that is the perfect place to, get on some conversations, share your recent career aspirations, your, projects that you do in school, like all of those things. You never know who's following you, really. You never know who's watching, and those opportunities come across your timeline when you don't even expect it.
Yeah, I love how simple that advice is, actually. So often we hear about being authentic, being vulnerable, really making sure that you stand out in those ways. And it gets a little confusing what those words mean, but I think you just explained it perfectly there. It's just saying exactly what you want, exactly who you are, and the right opportunities will come to you if you're just doing that and putting it out there. But it's not going to come if you're not putting it out there. So I love that so much. Now, is there anything that surprised you about entering into the tech world and working at a startup like MeetEdgar that you would love to share with someone who might not have had that experience yet?
Um, there's just something so unique about a startup. That's just the community-based aspect of it. I really love that, like, even though Edgar's completely remote, everyone is still available. Everyone's still, you really want to learn from people. They're always here to help. And that's just something I had never really experienced before, of just, the tech world can be so distant sometimes. And to have a company like this is just, it just changes the whole game.
Oh, that's so great to hear. Yeah, transparency within a startup is definitely something that I learned as well. Being a remote team and over communicating and stuff takes a little time to get used to, but it is so helpful. So let's switch over and talk about a little bit of the social media side of things that you're working on. Do you have any advice for other people who are really experimenting with social media that you have started to see work well since you've joined our team and started to get your voice into our social feeds?
Yeah, a lot of what I've been working on is Instagram based. And because of that, I've had a really interesting chance to be able to work on engagement and talking to people face to face and, one on one, and making sure that people, feel a part of this community. And that's something I just think every social media marketer can use is like, it's really about the people. Like it's, the design part is great, the metrics are great, but the people are something that I've been, sharing their stories and small businesses stories is something I'm working on now. So I really like that part of it.
Oh, that's so awesome. We do always want to make sure that we focus on community, but it does take a lot of work. So bringing someone like you onto the team who can focus on it is really helping to make sure that MeetEdgar is having our presence out there more. So when you're engaging on social media, what are you finding works well for really eliciting responses from people? Because the challenges that I hear so often in the inbox are that you're showing up and that our community is really getting out there, but no one is talking back. So what do you use to motivate you if that happens? Or what techniques do you really use to apply a call to action to our posts to get people to respond to us?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just making sure things feel personal.
Mm.
You don't want to feel like you're always selling to someone. You don't want to feel like things are, you know, there's always a call to action, but it's never responsive. Um, One thing is just kind of sharing our behind the scenes of like, what's some advice from our team? How are they navigating this? Like, sharing what their desk space look like, what their pets look like things like that just make it so much more personal and so much more engaging for people to respond to.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when you're creating content, do you have any of the favorite tools that you've been using so far to create some of these great graphics or to create some of these great captions that you can offer advice to our audience?
Yeah, Canva is something I've been using a lot. I've definitely had the chance to be able to dive deeper into that, and that's, I feel like I've been able to really get into the graphic design space. Um, and yeah, just using Edgar's tool, that's new, obviously, like things like that have really helped me be able to, get a better grasp on what social media marketing is, and hopefully in my future be able to even have a stronger take on, what I'm applying to the field. So.
Ah, that's so cool. So, in your opinion, what does success look like in this role for you? What are you learning? What are you hoping to get out of this role? And where do you want your career to go when it comes to social media? Since it is such an ever changing space, it's kind of interesting to talk about these things, I think.
Yeah. Honestly, there's so much out there that I can't say that I've narrowed it down to anything specifically. I know I do want to stay in the social media space, but like I said, I want to continue applying this role to people. That's the biggest thing is like I love sharing people's stories. And I'm going to grad school soon after I leave this role, and I'm really excited to just be able to take more of the technical things that I learned here and the people aspect that I love so dearly and be able to combine it and work towards the next phase of whatever that success may look like. So,
Ah, that's such a great idea of being able to get this real world experience before you go back to an educational experience. So, when you're thinking about your grad school experience, what do you think from this time of actually getting the technical side of things? What do you think that you've learned outside of your schooling here at Meet Edgar that you'll take into that experience?
hmm. I think this experience has been a lot more project based, which wasn't as much in school. You do an
Mm.
assignment, you turn it in, you go to the next thing. This, I've been able to see something come from, an idea in my head to reality and seeing, the growth over the 3 months I've been here so far, just in our metrics alone, and be able to respond to that and talk to the team and be like, okay, this is the next step. This is what I'm thinking. This is what, my boss is thinking, things like that. And seeing that growth and seeing how your results come out ahead has been so good.
That's so cool. So you are obviously an incredibly motivated person when it comes to graduating early from your undergrad to getting this lead program to going to grad school. What do you think motivates you most in your career so far?
That's a good question. Honestly, I think my family is what motivates me. I come from a really strong line of women, and they've always encouraged me to do my best, to take every opportunity, no matter how crazy it may sound, no matter where you find it, do your best, and the best will come to you. And that's something I've been able to take to heart. Something I want to continue in my career is making sure that I can motivate the next generation, and make sure that people feel included as well.
Oh my gosh, you're giving me chills talking about that. That's so good. And I totally agree. Having that deeper why can really help you understand how much you can accomplish in this world. So that's really awesome to hear. Now, when it comes to actually getting out there and finding your next job, the interview process here at MeetEdgar, what did it teach you? What do you think that you'll actually take to your new interviews, stuff like that? Can you talk me through the interview process and what you learned from it?
Yes. So I had 3 separate interviews, and it really gave me a chance to meet a few different people in the company, before I even started, and make sure that it was the right fit. And it also, part of the interview process for me was drafting some like portfolio based documents to get them an idea of like what I can do and on the fly, and things progressed very quickly. So that was something I pulled out of it, was always having my portfolio ready. I created a website for this opportunity, like things I didn't even think about before. And now I can, send them to the next interview I go to, and, add what I learned here and be able to really build like a living document from my work. So that was
Yeah,
helpful.
that's awesome. I love this idea of that living document because when it comes to updating your resume, you're never going to remember the exact things that you've done like 5 months ago. So keeping that up to date and recent does make a ton of sense. I love that. So you've got a lot of balls in the air between juggling all of your schooling and this program. Can you talk to me a little bit about your prioritization techniques? How do you prioritize what tasks you're doing? And how do you really structure your workday?
Yeah. So one of the things I got introduced to here was Asana. And that's been pretty helpful, just kind of writing everything down, what tasks are coming in, and really mapping them out. Like if it's a project, I map out every step of that project before I even start it. So I know, things don't get out of hand, or I know what's the next step. And for me personally in my life, I've always done that. I write everything down, whether that's on my notes app, or, on a post-it note, or, even little things like just pieces of paper. So I know exactly what's next, and, it helps me get my mind a little bit sorted before I go to, whatever that project may be. So that's helpful.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I love all these new tools that you've been introduced to because I think so often we think that we have to, make a website or have a social media presence all on our own. But there's so many simple tools out there that can systemize things. And so that's so great to hear. That's a huge part of what you're taking away from this. Now, do you have a favorite task that you do here at MeetEdgar as a part of the LEAD program?
Oh, honestly, I get a chance to listen to all the Social Post episodes and condense them down into like some audiograms that we post on our Instagram. And I really love doing that because it just gives me, the chance to hear what people are really saying, from those episodes, and really take that advice to heart and hear every single one. So I do like that.
Oh man, well, you're just making me feel so great with that answer there. Now, as you were saying, getting these social post episodes up on social media, what program do you use in order to make sure that these graphics look good and those audiograms that you were talking about? And what kind of processes do we have around getting these episodes out on social if any of our listeners have a podcast and are looking for some new ideas with that?
Yeah, so I use Headliner, and before I go into Headliner, I actually design, the way the graphic will look in Canva, and then I hear the entire podcast, write down some timestamps, make sure everything feels cohesive, and then use the Headliner tool to upload that image and put in the actual audio over the image, to make sure just everything feels like one image. It doesn't feel like I took those parts separately. Um, so yeah, it's super easy, and they actually have the podcast already in Headliner, so you can just kind of pull that RSS feed or pull, whatever you listen to your podcast on, and it's super easy.
Nice. So let's talk about some other processes because I think that was really helpful for people to hear, like writing down those timestamps, making sure you get that graphic made and stuff like that. Can you go through what you do with our blogs and how you get our blog posts out on social media as well?
Yeah. So once those blogs get posted, I basically just create the graphics for those. And I do a couple variations, and that's kind of the cool part about Edgar's. I can literally put in, the different variations. I make 3 or 4 graphics in the span of, 30 minutes or so from that one blog post, do the copywriting, pull it all in, and it could be under the same post, but with different content. So it doesn't feel like things are getting repetitive or things are, the same blog post getting posted multiple times. So that makes it really easy to just kind of plug those in, do my copywriting, send it out. Like it's so much easier that way.
Nice. And when you guys are measuring kind of which blogs are doing well on social media and where the traffic is coming from, what kind of metrics does our marketing team pay attention to with that? And kind of how do you find that information?
Yeah, so that's kind of one of the things I've been really learning, honestly, this through this program. I didn't have a whole lot of experience with engagement or metrics or things like that before. But Mara, our marketing manager, has really been able to sit in some of these meetings and work through, why does this matter? What is important about this metric? What are we working on? And that's where the engagement aspect comes from, is I've seen how important that is to be able to respond to people. And yeah, just work through all those numbers, and I didn't really have an idea of that before. So
Yeah, that's really great. Kind of not paying attention to just the raw number, but like, why does this matter? And I think one of the things MeetEdgar has done a lot more of in 2020, especially since you've joined and going forward, is making sure that every single task we're doing relates back to 3 specific goals so that we're not always just working on things just for the sake of filling our day or being busy, but really relating our work back to the 3 main goals we have. So that's really, really cool. Can you talk a little bit about kind of a project you might have done or something that you've worked on that's related to one of those goals, and kind of how you think about your work in comparison to that?
yeah, let's see. The most recent thing that I'm kind of working on is taking some user spotlight videos, and changing those into, those are the ones that you have done before, and interviewing some small businesses and people who use Edgar, seeing how they use the platform and how it has affected their business. So that's, kind of a meet them where they are as one of those goals, to see how people are really using, the things that we market every day and the things that, the tech team creates, and see how it's impacting people. And taking that data plus their stories and bridging them into one, social strategy, something I've been kind of working on. So
Yeah, so true. It's been so helpful to have you do that because often when I teach in webinars and stuff, we talk so much about social proof and this idea of getting testimonials out there and creating trust with people. It comes a lot faster if others have seen results with your product or service rather than just the company's marketing team telling you about those results. So having you actually cut these up into bite-sized videos where people can just watch them without having to invest 20 minutes into like a podcast interview has been really helpful. And this is one of the things that we love teaching at MeetEdgar too. If you have that core piece of content, make sure you're upcycling it and using it in multiple places and using it more than once, since reach is so low on social media sometimes. Being able to resurface those status updates and resurface that content for new people can be a strategy that you'll be able to do less work, but still get the same amount of traffic to your site. So that's been incredibly useful for you to do for us here at Edgar. Are there any other upcycling strategies like that you can offer to our community that you think work really well for getting more out of one piece of content?
yeah, something we're trying to dive into more is reels. And I think a lot of that content, it's just so simple to be able to say, visually, this is what I'm posting. Here's this, and this is what I learned from it. And to be able to put that into a reel, plus the engagement on Instagram just makes it skyrocket already. It just brings people in, and it makes things so much more concise to be able to put that into a visual platform like that.
Yeah, I am so excited to see our new Reels content. I think it's going to be super helpful for people in what you're doing with actually making the Reels valuable, like you said, listing out actionable steps and stuff like that. So when it comes to categorizing, here at Edgar, we love categorizing your social media status updates. What categories do you feel like work really well on social, whether it's for traffic or engagement or just to have a presence there? Talk to me about what categories we use here at Edgar and what kind of content we create for them.
Yeah. So something that I've kind of done since I've been here is break down our Instagram into different categories. Before it was just kind of, everything went out. And now it's, we have one for webinar promo. We have one for, social posts. We have one for our team, question of the day and what they, their advice. And we also have a just for fun category. So that has helped me to kind of, get in my creative space, draft some content that may not be, in the regular, and just have a whole category just for things that make me laugh, or, that are going to go out on the social posts that, are just kind of cool. Like, just switch up our Instagram feed a little bit. So
I love it. So simple, but so effective to be able to have different types of posts go out and know exactly why you're sharing each one of them. And that intention really has been showing in our feed recently, I think, as well. So I would love, before we end, just to come full circle here and start talking about your presence on social media and what you personally do there. Do you have any kind of brands that you love to follow for inspiration on social media? Do you have any personal people you like to follow that you can recommend to our audience today?
That's a great question. Recently, I've been since I, get into the Twitter space a little bit more now, I've been following just hashtag marketing Twitter. And there's so many people who just, share what they do and just advice all of the time to younger people who are entering the field. And I've also been able to kind of see what they do. And, when I find somebody that I really, really inspire me, I will go to their LinkedIn and see how their career has progressed, where they started, where they went to school, how they came to where they are now, and hopefully be able to in the future kind of mold my career a little bit after all of these people who've come before me. So that's been something super helpful in social that I never would have found without it.
Oh, that's so cool to hear. I love when people can actually genuinely connect and learn from social media. So guys, if you're not doing that, it does make it a much more fun space. I definitely agree with that. So as we wrap up, do you think there's anything else you'd like to share with our community, or anything else I should have asked you today, whether it's about your time here at Edgar or your thoughts about social media that you want to share?
Yeah, I just say have fun with it. At the end of the day, like I said, it's all about people. It can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes when you think about the metrics and the marketing and, the selling and all of that. And that's extremely important. But without the people behind it, none of that can come to fruition. And especially for college kids out there, broadcast your work, but also make it about you, be authentic. And that'll take you far. So.
Such good words to end on. Tia, thank you so much for your time and for shedding some light on our lead program. You have been an amazing asset to our team, and we're so lucky to have found you and for you to have found us on social media. So thanks for your time today, guys. If you have any feedback at all, we'd love for you to leave a review of social post, tag at MeetEdgar on Instagram. Tia is the one, as you heard, who does our engagement. So she'd love to hear from you there. And subscribe to Social Post. We drop a new episode every Wednesday. Tia, thanks so much.
Thanks so much for tuning in, and be sure to keep the conversation going with us on social. We're at MeetEdgar on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So let us know your biggest takeaway from today's episode, and don't forget to tag us. Visit www.meetedgar.com and start a free trial to up-level your social media marketing strategy today. Happy posting!